There's some severe problems with this Audi, and it's not because it's a hybrid. It has other issues. Let's get started. This is a 2016 Audi A3 e-tron, which means it's EV/hybrid. There's buttons on the dash that Mrs. Wizard will show you that actually says EV. It's kind of a hybrid. It's kind of a weird thing. It's a little bit more complicated than a Toyota Prius, but basically the same idea. And there's some bad news we're going to build up to as we go along. But before we dive into what's wrong with this, let's go over what the complaints are. The complaint is they're driving on the highway. As the engine warms up, they're seeing the oil pressure light come on. They're seeing several other warning lights come on, and occasionally it runs rough. They have some other issues going along, and they want to know what's going on with the engine. They say the rest of it seems to be fine for now, but as I tell you more to the story, it's like, what? So anyways, let's take a look around this A3 e-tron. Here's the front of this Audi A3, and you can see it's designated e-tron in the grille. You can see the floor is a little wet. It's a very rainy day here in Kansas, and all the cars that are coming into the shop are just dripping all over the concrete. Look down the side, the wheels and tires look nice. It's a little dirty, but the body shows in good condition. It's not rusted out. As we come around to the back, you can see it is the hatchback, and again, A3 e-tron Ultra. Equally as nice on this side. Let's let Mrs. Wizard show you guys around the interior. It's actually pretty nice on the inside.
Okay, ladies and gents, 80,048 miles. And, ooh, that battery back there says it's got 8 miles of range. Yikes. But let me go ahead and turn that light on. There we go. Nice gauge cluster. It looks very good. But as we move up, you see that the dash is in good shape. It really doesn't have that many miles on this car. We can see that it says e-tron here in that area above our passenger. We do have lots of round turnstile vents right there, and they're looking good as well. I don't see much dust or dirt in there. As we move down, we're so used to seeing infotainment screens, and we don't have that. We have lots of HVAC buttons and things like that, but there's no screen. Well, we do, but if I move back, I push our button, it pops up and says, oh gosh, there is our shop in no muffler Newton. So go ahead and turn that off. And it goes back to sleep with a nice little cover. So, okay, that's looking good. It's working, it's functional. So we move down, we've got cup holders back there. We've got our gear selector. We have controls for that infotainment screen, which is so far away above that dash and those vents. Then we also have our e-brake as well. And our center section just lifts up. They have some napkins in there. It has a nice stiff. It will stay open. It won't fall on you. And as the rain is now falling harder here in Kansas, we'll battle that as we are at least in the shop dry. But we do have a kind of a mocha kind of color for our seats. They are leather and they're in really good condition. I don't see anything wrong with them, no flaws or anything. We see some more of that leather on our door card as well, and looking very nice. Back seat, again, we have more of that black with our brown accents with the leather, looking good. You can see they have even tissues back there for those emergencies that we seem to have. And since this is a hatchback, that glass back there is quite far with a little bit of a cargo area behind those seats. Headliner's good shape, nothing going on, no marks. So we're back at our steering wheel, and we have our normal controls that we'd see on any other car. And Wizard promised that I would show you a few buttons that are just for the EV part. And we do have a couple here. We have drive select, and then we have a button that controls that EV, which probably then would bring up something on that infotainment screen that is nicely put to sleep at the moment. So enough of this interior talk. Let's get the hood open and see what it looks like under there.
No, this is not a 2.0 TSI. No, it's not a 1.8. It is a 1.4. That's what's used on the e-tron. It is a turbo. It's a small little engine. Unfortunately, we have a lot of issues going on with the engine, and we have some codes. I'll show you the list here in a minute. It does say e-tron. Let's go ahead and remove our engine cover. And we see the engine, again, a little tiny 1.4. There is a little baby turbo back there. Everything appears to look nice and be intact. Here's our air filter. I don't see anything damaged or broken on top. It appears nice until we look to the right of the engine and see all the complexity. That looks scarier to me than a Toyota Prius. There's tons of electric cables, orange cables, modules, all kinds of things. Luckily, we don't have any error codes for that system, but that doesn't mean there's not issues once we tell you the rest of the story. So with the complaints the customer has with the engine, we did use our Autel scanner and pull the codes. Here's a list of the codes. You can see there are codes there for the timing chain being over advanced. Also, there's cam crank correlation codes. And for those of you who are VW diehards or into the Audi world, we're already triggered. It's timing chains, it's overstretched, we already know. So yes, we know the timing chains are bad on this engine. That's a strike against it. Also in that code list, let's take a look again at the top. The turbo is bad. So that turbo is on its way out. I've seen a lot of these turbo issues with Audis where the wastegate has gone bad. It's actually got slop in it. It's very likely the same situation here, but it does show that the turbo is bad. We haven't dove in real deep to start pulling things apart because, again, once we get to the rest of the story, you'll see why. But it's having the light come on after extended driving, low oil pressure, once it gets warmed up. He also believes it may be overheating. We haven't seen any signs or codes for overheating or any signs of overheating. But the reduced oil pressure or the low oil pressure, that's kind of scary. And I read the complaints here, talked about, like I mentioned, with the oil pressure light coming on. There's a couple of instances where they went to pass someone and it felt like it was running on 2 cylinders. He turned off the car and restarted again. It seemed to be fine after that. But frequently has the oil pressure light coming on, and he's just concerned what's going on with that. Here's actually something I made a mistake here. I read these complaints, I set the paper down, and I continue on with my diagnosis. Started checking things, looking things over, and it's like, well, I know the timing chains are bad. I know the turbo is bad. It's already not looking good. But you know the old saying, 3 strikes, you're out. We're at 2, a turbo and timing chains. Then I read, as Paul Harvey says, which I keep bringing up all the time, the rest of the story. I turned the paper over. Now it didn't hurt anything, didn't cause any issues, but it definitely changed drastically my attack on the diagnosis. It tells the story of the person that owned this car before the current owner, our current customer here. That previous owner ran over something in the road and tore the oil pan completely off. And also some cooling pipes and hybrid electrical lines were ripped and torn with that incident. That's when the oil pressure light came on, and this previous owner continued to drive another 5 miles with a no oil pan to get to the dealer. I think they put a new oil pan on and it does run and drive still, but the insurance, and here's the thing that's really going to hurt our sales for trying to get a job on this car. The value is about to drop in half. Let me show you why. Due to this incident, the insurance company totaled this car and was sold at an insurance auction in Chicago, who repaired the damage and made up a story about the car being stolen and recovered after an insurance payout. I was suckered by the story and purchased the car. That completely, drastically changes everything, doesn't it? I mean everything. This engine's toast. When they ran it out of oil, and Danielson, me and him were talking about it, very likely the main crank bearings are wallowed out pretty bad. Where you first started, it works okay, but as it warms up, those clearances expand and then oil pressure drops. Now we know the timing chain is bad, the turbo is bad. Very likely from this incident with the oil pan, and this engine's been ran for quite a long distance with no oil, and there's whole big scam about a made-up story about the car being stolen and recovered, and this current person bought it under those assumptions. This brings to mind 2 things. Number 1, this car is absolutely 0% worth fixing. Not at all. You say, well, it's mechanically totaled. It was totaled before this guy even bought it. It's totaled, double totaled. So this car might be worth a couple of grand. It's going to cost 6, 8, 10 to fix everything. Absolutely not worth it. We will not be taking on this job. It's down a rabbit hole of failure. That's all that will be. We're not going to do that. So what are the bad things that happens when oil pressure gets low? Modern engines today don't just use the oil to lubricate the parts. They actually use it as hydraulic fluid. It uses it to actuate cam actuators, to actuate various different systems in the car. It uses as hydraulic fluid, pressure, to open and close things. When the pressure drops, those things can't work anymore. It very likely could be what's going on with the timing chains. I wouldn't know until we dive in, but again, this car isn't worth diving into. But aside from those items not being able to operate properly anymore, also metal-to-metal contact starts to happen. You can tear up bearings, you can tear up sidewalls and the cylinder walls. All kinds of different things can go really wrong really fast. So you definitely don't want to drive like the previous owner did on this car. Drove it 5 miles with no oil, literally no oil pan. Don't do that, guys. Immediately pull over, turn the car off. You say, I don't want to pay for a $200 tow. Well, is the other option better? A $6,000 engine? Pay for the tow. Just get a tow truck. But you guys just did a walk around with this. You saw the nice condition it's in. And I want to do this video for you guys to show you you're at a car lot. You're looking at that really nice car and it presents very well. It even runs and drives okay on the 2-minute test drive you did. You really need to do Carfaxes or VinWiki. We really recommend VinWiki. And really do some investigations on cars before you just dive in. You could get stuck with this that looks really nice and can get completely had. I've known people in the past at shops I've worked at before, local dealers, they really like those salvage or rebuilt titles. They think they can get a good deal, make a good profit on it. There's people that purposely buy rebuilt titles or salvage titles. They think they're saving money. Being a person who doesn't know how to work on cars, or if you're not mechanically inclined in any way, shape, or form, you should never, ever buy a rebuilt or salvage title car. You have no idea how extensive the damage is, and just like this customer found out, he was under the assumption it was stolen and recovered. When actually, the truth is, someone hit the oil pan, dumped all the oil out and drove it 5 miles and really did some damage to this engine. And we're seeing it now with the turbo, the timing chains, some lubrication issues for sure. And now he's having warning lights come on, oil pressure low. Yeah, can you imagine why? If you are mechanically inclined and you have a lot of experience fixing cars, it might be worth the risk if you look it over really well, make sure you know what you're getting. And then if you do run into a few snags, you can probably get yourself out and still not be broke. But in this situation, the customer doesn't know how to do all this or doesn't have the facilities to do this kind of work. This is going to be multiple thousands on top of more thousands of dollars to work their way out of this situation. Again, a mechanically inclined person could possibly buy a used engine, put it in, and again, a used engine, I looked it up, just the engine, not the labor, not the hoses and the fluids and all the seals that we would replace on your used engine once we bought it. Just the engine is $2,000. This car is not even worth but maybe $2,000 now, maybe 2 or 3. Again, remember, it's double totaled. Now, how long can this car last? If you just use it as an in-town grocery getter, just do small trips, maybe it can go for a couple more years. I would do that. You get some use out of it, it's eventually going to fail completely, and then it's salvage, it's scrap at that point. It's already salvage, guys. The title even says it on there, salvage. So it'll go truly to a salvage yard here not too long probably. You could try selling it to someone who could fix it and get it back on the road safely and have all the problems fixed, but they're not going to give you but maybe $1,500 for it, maybe $2,000 like I mentioned. Knowing the history, the title history, the insurance auction, all those stories come together, no one's going to give you top dollar once they find out those stories. So I definitely want to do a video today to show you guys the two things. Number one, you could be looking at a car that's just an absolute disaster and not even know it because it looks nice. And number two, make sure to do your research when you're purchasing that car. Do some VIN searches. Have the car pre-purchase inspections. I get a lot of questions from fans who say, is this car good? Here's a picture of it. I shouldn't be the one saying it's good. You should be taking it to get a pre-purchase inspection at a shop so it can be visually looked at. Not through a picture, but in person. Because you might find some things going on and you're like, whoa, something has happened here. This car's been in an accident. Trust me, there's a lot of cars on the road that have been in accidents that the customer is mechanically inclined enough, they fixed it themselves and did not report it. It is not on a VIN check. Pre-purchase inspections. Every time that you buy a car, you should be getting one. So we talked about the oil pan a lot. Let's actually get this on the lift and take a look underneath. So here we are underneath, and I see that this looks fairly old, but this belly pan here looks fairly new. They really have had to hit something really hard because the oil pan's up under that to tear off the oil pan. Something really big they hit in the middle of the road. I'll show you a little peek at the oil pan. You can actually see the silicone they used to re-adhere the bottom oil pan. It's a sheet metal pan. So you can see the oil pan, new bolts. You can see the silicone pooched out on the side. So it's that lower oil pan they replaced when it lost all oil. I would think there was an oil pan gasket there, but some auto manufacturers use just silicone, but they use quite a lot. It's pooching out all over the sides, but regardless, we see evidence of that having been done. Let's go ahead and check the rest of the car real quick and get it on the ground. Brake pads are nice and thick. Sway bar links are good. CV boots are good. The struts did make a popping noise when we raised the car. The struts are probably getting towards near the end of their life. Brakes are good. CV boots are good. Struts are not leaking, at least. Nothing loose. Luckily the car is low enough to the ground that the tweakers can't get to the cat on this one. Here's our resonator chamber. Lots of panels along the bottom. As we go back, I do see some evidence of some scraping right through here, like whenever they went up over and damaged the oil pan, they scraped back here, whatever it was. It looks like it was fairly large. Maybe a log or something, I don't know. Let's check out the rear brakes. They're good. Shocks are good. Nothing's loose here. Our sway bar link is good. Brake pads are thick. Sway bar link is good. Our ride height sensor is in good shape. And nothing really loose there. So whatever they hit likely broke that debris into pieces when they hit as well, and it kind of fumbled on its way back. Did some serious damage to the oil pan, obviously. Let's get this thing back on the ground. So is this car worth fixing? We now know the issues, what's wrong, and what happened with the engine. Is it worth fixing? Not even 1% worth fixing. 0. Absolutely not worth fixing. It's already been totaled once by the insurance company, and we just told you about the big scam. This poor customer was duped pretty hard. So no, we're not going to be fixing it. Maybe some unscrupulous shop would advise this customer to dump a bunch of money into this. We don't do that here. We're going to give them the cold hard truth. Sometimes the cold hard truth hurts. You don't want to hear it, but that's what we give here. No, we don't want to fix your car. It's absolutely not worth it. So definitely wanted to get a video for you guys in to show you looks can be deceiving. You can really get into a lot of trouble. This customer has gotten themselves into some trouble. I feel bad for them, it's sad. We're not even going to charge them any money for the diagnosis we did because this is a bad, bad deal all around. Nobody won here at all. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on other cars in the shop, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. A lot of the tools we use in the shop are for sale there, and if you purchase anything, we get a small cut and really appreciate it. And next week's schedule is full, which means more video for you guys. Thanks for watching.